American flair to it, but I'm also seeing the all-seeing iris. So there could be kind of a Saharan Mayan fusion.
Yeah.
But that's just me trying to say stuff
I love it.
that I don't necessarily understand.
I love it. And that's the coolest part, I think, about painting is that, I started it with the kind of an intent of what it meant to me. But the cool part is if somebody else comes in and has a completely different interpretation of it, and, you realize that I think that's kind of the coolest part about making art is that once you release it to the world, I think you're the first person outside of family that's seen that one.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. There's a mother and there's a father. And it's almost, I think more than anything, now that I've finished it, it kind of comes from kind of the stained glass imagery I grew up with in my Catholic church in St. Joe's in Delaware. But clearly, you see a bird, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Who's the guy up top to the left?
Over here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, in the corner.
In the far corner?
Yeah, the African gentleman.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who that is? I forget his name. It's Saint. Oh, you could put me on the spot. I can't remember what his name is. Saint.
The leader of the Haitian Revolution.
No, it wasn't the leader. No, it wasn't him. It was not him. But no, I forget his name. But I did this whole series of saints, just because I love their stories. So there's this one saint. She's the first African woman to be sainted by the church, and she was kidnapped into slavery in Sudan when she was very young. And she got freed by this group of nuns when she was in her teens. Her most famous quote is about how if she were to meet the people who enslaved her, she would kneel at their feet and kiss their hands because of what they ultimately gave to her, which was the life that she had now. And that's a dramatic expression of the feeling that I was talking about with you before, which is that although it has been kind of a cruel 4 years in many ways, I'm like eternally grateful for right where I am right now. As much as these people have kind of been the ultimate expression of evil, at least in my lifetime, is that it kind of fills me with an enormous sense of purpose. Not just in my art, but what I'm doing. I just think that there's such an opportunity to be of service right now, and not in a, some kind of melodramatic, way, but a lot of people that are, getting the shit beat out of them out there, right here in LA, and there's an enormous opportunity for just normal people to do kind of heroic things, whether it's protecting somebody that's about to get kidnapped off a street, if you witness it, to I'm working with a group now called BASTA, the homeless prevention, and just started actually as a director of development for BASTA, which is the leading homeless prevention and tenants' rights group in southern Los Angeles.
Like you protect people from like eminent domain style evictions?
Well, from eviction, and we're the only group in at least Southern California that represents undocumented, and so we don't take any federal money. And by the way, it's not just El Salvadorian immigrants, it's, Ukrainian immigrants that, came in under duress from what's going on in Ukraine and find it really hard to find work because of the fear of employers that they're gonna disrupt their business because of ICE raids and things like that. And then they lose their income. And almost all of these people are families and children. And if you can keep someone in their apartment or their home, you obviously also keeping somebody off the street in homelessness. And what you find is like when a child becomes homeless, like the road back to any chance of normalcy just becomes exponentially harder, harder and harder.
One connection I wanted to make that I feel like I did mention in our last interview is we talked about the prison in El Salvador.
If you think that the prison in El Salvador is not a fucking concentration camp, you're out of your fucking mind. Tell me anybody that's returning from there. You saw those pictures. Do you think anybody's getting out of there? Or, is it a rehabilitation center? You think, I've been to those places in South Sudan and around in those areas. You think anybody's getting out of those South Sudan prisons? Ever? Ever? Out of your fucking mind. That's a death camp. They're done. They're over. And if you're not dead, you would want to be dead if you were in that prison.
Well, today the leader of El Salvador hit back on Twitter with this blunt reply: is Hunter Biden sniffing powdered milk, referring to Biden's earlier troubles with drug use. And then US Border Czar Tom Homan was just as blunt.
I don't really care what the former first drug addict thinks.
Yeah, And I went and talked to like somebody who was Salvadorian, and I was like, what do you think about that? And they were like, it's the best thing that ever happened. You know, El Salvador is now 15, 16 times safer and has like a much lower homicide rate.
Yeah.
We referenced the case of that guy who got sent there, the Maryland guy who was, you know, not even, I think he was actually a citizen or something like that. And he got sent there, he got sent there without trial.
Yeah.
Do you see any merit to like the flip side of the coin?
No, I don't see the merits to any argument in which the way in which you solve a problem is by completely dehumanizing people, utilizing the tools of a fascist dictatorship.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
like, fuck no, do I believe in that? No.
Yeah.
It's the oldest political tool in the toolbox, which is, you know, like hang 'em high. You know, like I got no problem with people that are deserving of punishment to be punished, but to create an entire system in which you have no due process, no habeas corpus, no ability of any judicial review as it relates to the state's actions against you, without any chance of pleading your case or your innocence or the or any tempering of whatever it is that you have been accused of doing, it's just it's barbaric. That's why we have a Constitution. That's why we have rights under that Constitution. And that's why the Supreme Court has continuously held over the past 250 years is that, you know, certain punishments are outside the scope of any human being's constitutional rights.
Yeah, I was just surprised because, I mean, they were talking about Bukele like he was like the savior of their country. I just didn't expect that reaction. She was like, yeah, now, you know, my grandma's not getting extorted running a, you know,
By the way,
car.
so that's it, you know, that's a flip side. And if you're telling me that the only way that you can do that is to create a concentration camp and put people in it without any judicial review, I don't want to live in that country.
Yeah, so you think
You know,
like,
even though my grandmother would be safe, or I'm safe, until I get crosswise with the president of El Salvador or anybody that works for him.
yeah.
And then I'm become a prisoner in a concentration camp in which nobody leaves. And it's not hyperbole. You walk in there, you do not come out. It's a death camp. And the idea that we're sending U.S. citizens, regardless, you know, by the way, if that's a decision that El Salvador and El Salvadorians want to make for their own good, the idea that the president of the United States
Yeah.
is snatching people off the streets
Yeah.
and without any judicial review, without any chance to plead your case, sending them to a death camp in El Salvador, it's hard to believe that we're in that spot.
Yeah, that's the exact, you just said exactly what I was trying to get at, which is like, regardless of how people in El Salvador feel about it, because some of them do have positive feelings about it, the fact that we're utilizing it is crazy. Because that's not even our country. And so it's like you're finding a place to collaborate with that has no judicial process as a way to get around basic human rights.
Yeah.
So pretty much like a couple weeks after our big interview, Trump and Pam Bondi had a press conference of some kind and were asked about the Epstein files, which they promised to release. And they said, no big deal, stop talking about this creep, nothing to see here, keep moving. But the question is, what was your first reaction when you saw that?
My first reaction, it's so predictable. It's the obvious conclusion to a conspiracy theory for which his base was so attached to and can remain so attached to. It is the principal motivating factor for an enormous part of the energy within MAGA base. And if you read any of, I'll think of his name in a second, but he'd written about this extensively, is that people do not understand to the degree that the global cabal of pedophilia conspiracy is at the root of so much of the MAGA movement, and they're very, very, very attached to it. At the end of the day, is that I don't know if he is going to be, even by distraction, whether it's me or threatening Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship or whatever other distraction that he has come up with in the last 4 hours, because it really is a core tenet of their belief that cabal exists, and that cabal was populated mainly by global elites and Democrats. So he now says that it's all a hoax, that the Epstein conspiracy was all a hoax. And he said to his followers, you're no supporter of mine if you continue to promote this hoax. And then says that it was conspiracy that was started by Obama and Biden to get him. If that's the case, is he saying that we, Democrats, had the ammunition, the conspiracy to deploy against Donald Trump in 2016, but we didn't use it. And then we had 4 years to do it while he was president. And then we had 4 years to use it when my dad was president of the United States. And then we didn't use it in the 2024 campaign against him either. We waited until he became president, took over the Department of Justice like no other president has in his lifetime, took over the FBI, and they report directly to the president for the first time in history, by the way. And now that they have the information, there's nothing to see. And it was all a hoax by Biden. It literally makes no sense. And I wonder if it'll work, though. I mean, with his supporters, I wonder if they'll drop it.
You think they'll forget?
I don't know. I guess this is going to be the real test. I think this will be the first real test. Because they, in other times they have. I mean, look, he said that the election was stolen. And Fox News followed him down that rabbit hole to the tune of $782 million that they had to pay in a lawsuit to Dominion, you know? But it didn't stop them. It didn't stop any, you know, they put on January 6th committee. They went through chapter and verse, all of the information about the 2020 election and whether it was stolen or not, and what happened on January 6th. But you know what? His entire base still believes, even though there is all the data and all the film, that it was still a bunch of peaceful people that walked into the Capitol, and any violence that occurred happened because of Antifa.
Antifa in MAGA hats.
In MAGA hats, yeah.
Do you feel that your time in prison changed your belief systems at all?
Like, regarding politics?
Yeah.
No.
But this one, I think, is different.
QAnon shaman is lashing out at the man who gave him a pardon. Chansley called the president a fraud.
And it's different because how do you explain it away? Like, there's this one came from them. He rode that energy. Into the presidency twice. It'll be interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
Do you think that his choice to not release the files was because there's not much of interest on there, or because he's compromised in some capacity by what's in the files?
I don't know. I truly can only go by what other people are saying. And one of the things that I'm certain of is that what I said before is kind of the Occam's razor, which is that, you know, the simplest explanation is almost always true. And what's the simplest explanation is that of anyone in power right now, or anyone that held power to the degree that Donald Trump is holding power now, his connections to Jeffrey Epstein are beyond a doubt that he and Epstein were very close friends for a very long period of time. They spent an enormous time together. They spent an enormous time together around young women, as in his own words.
Trump's got more pictures with Epstein than I do with my own grandma.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, just think about this. Is when Ghislaine, how do you pronounce it?
It's technically Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
I know that.
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell is when she gets convicted, and he's asked about it. This is when he was president, 2020 still. And he goes, you know, I wish her well.
I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well.
And then he explains that comment. Like, she's a good person, and I wish her well. Now, she's just been convicted of sex trafficking and, you know, dozens and dozens of teenage girls. When he's then pressed on it in an interview after that, he says, I wish her well. I wish everyone well. I don't wish anyone harm.
Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
I don't know that, but I do know that.
She has. She's been arrested for that.
Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that
so you're saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
she's a child alleged child sex trafficking.
Big deal.
Are you out of your mind? Yeah. He can't wish anyone well on Christmas morning without sending out a tweet or Truth Social or whatever it is, you know, blaming the leftist, you know, socialist, communist Democrats and Joe Biden and blah, 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 blah. I mean, literally, on Easter Sunday, he doesn't wish anybody well. There's never been a time in which he's ever, in my estimation, wished anyone well, let alone a convicted sex trafficker.
Yeah.
And so, what's going on there? Okay, well, they knew each other well. They spent an enormous time together. According to his biographer, is that Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania. That's how Melania and the First Lady and the President met.
Really?
Yeah.
Epstein made the intro.
Yeah, according to Michael Wolff.
Yeah.
And so I only can go by what people are saying, and I don't know.
As many of you guys know, the first 3.5-hour Hunter Biden interview broke headlines nationwide. Here, as you can see, using the Ground News bias distribution tool, the left and the right are covering our Hunter Biden interview very differently. The left-wing New York Magazine headline reads, "Hunter Biden unloads on his father's team, George Clooney and critics," while the right-wing Daily Wire reads, "Hunter Biden defends illegals with slew of F-bombs." Interesting to see what each party chooses to focus on. I did think.
And in Epstein's own words, he was his actual best friend for well over a decade. The thing that is like, I'm loath to do is like, but feed into another goddamn conspiracy theory. It's just so destructive to the entirety of the cultural fabric. It's like, I think it's an important story, but I think it's an important story because of the victims. That's why I think it's an important story.
Yeah.
You know, when my brother was Attorney General, he convicted the most prolific sex offender in a pedophile in history.
John Wayne Gacy.
No, pedophile, and over 248 victims, I think over 250 victims, and his name was, oh God, I forget his name, a doctor. He was a pediatrician, and he filmed it all. And he would take pre-verbal children that were his patients into a room by themselves, and he filmed him sexually abusing them.
Firing squad.
Over years and years and years. And my point about it is this. He had a whole office. He was an incredibly well-respected doctor in Southern Delaware. He was the chair of one of the hospital's pediatric divisions. He had a practice, and over the course of decades, had seen thousands of children. But everyone knew there's something weird. Everyone knew. Now, what he did, he was so diabolical that he only targeted children that couldn't speak or that were pre-verbal. So I'm talking about like 2, 3 year old toddlers. And the only thing that got him was that he had filmed it all. And so when my brother was by the way, law enforcement had known about it for years. Had been getting complaints from mothers, had been getting complaints from like children that couldn't fully form it, and no one was willing to bring the case. And it was the same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. Is I think the only thing that really to take away from this is that men are fucking pigs, and the fact of the matter is that pedophilia is much more pervasive than you would think that it is, and I think people's willingness to believe it is because of their own experience in life. And I wish that was the discussion that people were having about protecting children, because most of Jeffrey Epstein's victims were not like 18, 19, 24-year-old models that came over to work for John Casablancas and Elite Models and got themselves into bad situation on his island. Most of them were like 14, 15-year-old girls from West Palm Beach that he would, manipulate into coming over to his house. But I'm not talking like 1 or 2. I'm talking, there were hundreds, and everybody knew. And he had a full staff of people, and he had friends that were there, and he had, and I'm not saying that means that everybody that was in the presence of Jeffrey Epstein or was at one of his salons was necessarily a pedophile.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the Dalai Lama at his house at one point. That does not mean that I don't have the complete reverence for the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
But that's how he would sucker people in, is that you would have these powerful people and you would see kind of like this other thing going on, and you could think that they must like have been like, suspension of disbelief. I mean, like I don't know. But in retrospect, everybody's like, oh yeah, like that was weird. And I think that that's what's going on here. And I think that what probably exists is a lot of the victims recounting that they were there when he was there.
So you're not as concerned about the conversation over whether it was a pedophile destination or if it was some kind of like intelligence honeypot. You're more focused on the broader conversation about pedophilia and the pervasiveness of pedophilia among the powerful.
No, I wish everybody would be more concentrated on that. But the fact of the matter is nobody is. So like, that's like, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter. That thread has completely been lost. So now there is a real question. And he's making it, and in any other political situation, it would be, you know, like it would be over. Yeah. It would be over for this person. He's directed his attorney general, because his attorney general, by his own account, doesn't do anything without his direction, okay? He directs the FBI, because his FBI director, by anyone's account, does not do anything without his direction. Nobody. Not one of his cabinet members, none of it happens inside cabinet and staff. There's no separation whatsoever between the Oval Office and the entire administration in terms of its leadership. And that doesn't mean that he's fully aware of every decision that is obviously being made, like, you know, Pete Hague says, stopping aid to Ukraine without telling him. But that's just because people are, you know, that he's chosen a bunch of morons.
So you're saying he made the choice to shut it down?
Yeah.
And do you think he made that choice because he was on the list, or because someone higher than him was pressuring him or perhaps blackmailing him into keeping it suppressed?
Oh, no. I think it's because that I don't think that there's probably an actual list, like a black book. Like the woman who I think is the smartest on this is the reporter that originally broke the story in Palm Beach, the Miami Herald. I forget her name. But I heard her speaking, and she said, look, we've all known for a long time that there is no list. But by the way, think about this, too. How many different investigators have there been on this? You had the Palm Beach Police, you had the State's Attorney's Office in Florida, you had the FBI and multiple different offices and had headquarters. You had the Southern District of New York. You have the U.S. Attorney in Palm Beach. And each one of those, there were grand juries impaneled. There's grand jury information. There's an enormous amount of evidence that was collected, and that all exists. Okay. And every one of those people from all the leaks, and I can tell you from my own experience, having had to go through all that shit, is none of it stays confidential. It always leaks. And if there was a list and actual names, like, you know, John Smith, you know, blah, 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 check mark. You know what I mean? Like 6 times in, you know, at the island or whatever. I don't think he did that. I think what he did is that there is a body of information in a wide-ranging investigation in which his name appears probably as much or more than anybody else, because they were together by their own words. I'm not even making it up. I feel like I don't want to, like, you know.
Well, Trump says they used to hang a lot, but then he figured out that, you know, he was into underage people, and he was like, I got to stop hanging out with this guy.
No. He never says that that's the reason that he stopped hanging out with him.
He said it one time. He was like, Jeffrey, we were cool, but I don't know about him now.
After he was convicted of solicitation.
After he became an RSO, registered sex offender, Trump was like, all right, man, that's enough. I'm just giving you the Trump defense, devil's advocate, because that's what he's going to say.
Yeah. And I like boy, like, wow. Like, once you got convicted, which, by the way, like, and oh, yes, you're right. That's it. He does say that. Is when that happened, when Alex Acosta came up with a non-prosecution agreement and gave every single person, named or unnamed, in the indictment immunity.
Yeah.
Everybody. And then Trump became president and named Alex Acosta the Secretary of Labor. Yeah. Out of the blue, as if he had any qualifications.
Did Trump ever suggest back in the heyday of 2020 that you had a connection to Jeffrey Epstein of some kind?
I don't think so.
You never got wrapped up? No. Just loose associations in the mind of Trump supporters.
Don't start it either. No. My God, I got enough goddamn problems. It's like, no one yet, and now.
I figured they'd somehow tie you to it.
Thanks, brother. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, do you think it was like a suicide? Epstein?
No. Nobody does. I mean, really, except for all of a sudden, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Nobody thinks it was. Yeah. Is that you have that renowned doctor, a coroner, that did the, what's it called?
Postmortem autopsy.
Yeah, the postmortem autopsy.
I don't know if that's what it's called.
He talks about all the different, the different fractures in his neck and how it was impossible that he could have done that.
You can't
by simply
by strangling yourself.
What?
You can't commit suicide. No.
Exactly. And
You
he
can't
says,
yourself to death, even if you hate life.
yes, exactly. That literally is an impossibility in a fiction. And there's this idea that what he did is like he leaned forward. Well, none of it matches up. There's that guy that just testified not testified, he was interviewed that was in the cell next to Jeffrey Epstein's. And he said it's just absolutely impossible that he would have been able to do that. Now you have the tape that comes out, and it's not just 1 minute missing from the tape. It's actually 3 minutes from the tape has been overwritten.
Well, you know that's standard protocol at the most secure facility in the country.
Well, that yes, yeah. I mean, it's and just that alone, you have someone that everyone absolutely knows that if anything happens to him is going to be, you're going to be accused of a gigantic cover-up. And he dies, and the guy that is his co-conspirator in France, what's his name? He just happens to, commit suicide or, die in mysterious ways in prison. And, the woman who's living in Australia, she commits suicide just before the, look, again, I'm feeding into the conspiracy, but clearly, who believes that he killed himself?
No one.
Nobody.
I've never met anyone who does. But, to be fair, let's keep it real. He was in a pretty bad situation. It's not like he's in a situation which you wouldn't be suicidal in. He's being tried for sex trafficking.
You know what kills me about this more than anything?
What?
Is in any way agreeing with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
It kills me. And that's the thing that's just doing I'm like, oh, I don't want to feed into this.
Yeah.
So just from the political side, who am I to know whether he killed himself or not? I don't know. I don't know.
Who do you think would have killed him, CIA mercenaries or something?
No, I don't know.
Other inmates? Because inmates
what,
do...
you mean like a ninja? Are we in a...
Somebody killed him in a 3-minute
James
window.
Bond movie now? What?
Somebody killed him in a 3-minute window.
It was Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. Yeah.
Also, other inmates don't accuse child molesters.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't think it's very hard, at least from my years of watching Hollywood prison movies.
Yeah.
For something, my whole experience with the prison system. But it seems, at least from other events, that getting to somebody in prison isn't as hard as you think it would be. But I don't know. I just don't. I think that there were probably a lot of people who would rather him not be alive. And by the way, but does it matter? At this point, obviously it matters, and if you could ever figure it out. But it doesn't answer the question of why there's been this slow about face. It's that whole story about, and it's too long a story to tell, but it starts off with the guy who calls and he said, he's watching somebody's cat, calls and asks, and the guy calls and how's the cat? And he said, the cat's on the roof. This whole thing?
I don't know, but I'll look into it.
He says the cat's on the roof, and then the guy says, what's the cat doing up in the roof? He goes, and he said, call me back in 10 minutes. And he calls him back in 10 minutes. He said, well, the cat's off the roof now, but he fell into the trash can. And the guy goes, well, we'll go get him out of the trash can. He said, well, we get out of the trash can, but, I was carrying him back, and he fell in the pool, and so he's in the pool now. And he goes, and it keeps going and going and going. And finally he goes, how's the cat? And he said, the cat died. And he says, why did you tell me he was on the roof? And he said, I just wanted to soften the blow. And I forget why I just fucking told the cat on the fucking roof story.
I understand. The blow's getting soft.
What they did is they started off and they released one thing. But it wasn't the full thing, and then they kind of wanted to see if they could kind of get away with that and get people off it and say, well, there's going to be a round 2 of this, and I didn't get it from the FBI, and the Southern District of New York has all the files, and of course it's the Southern District of New York, a bunch of liberal commies up there. We're going to get them under heel, and then when Cash gets in, he's going to be able to figure it out, and old Danny Boy is going to go in, and he's going to, shake the trees and make sure, and then they get that, and then those guys go on TV and they say, well, no, there was definitely not a suicide. It was definitely a suicide. It was clearly a suicide. Sorry, I'd be the one to tell you otherwise. And then, until the point where they thought that you could just kind of slide this in on a Friday at midnight and see what happened, that they're not going to do anything more.
Yeah.
That's it. We just heard the end of the Epstein story.
Do you think that they expected this level of backlash?
No, clearly.
They were just used to people just going with whatever they said?
I think that they expected backlash, and that's why they did it the way that they did it. But well, we'll see. They may be right. You know, who knows? They may drop this. He may have that firm a hold. You know, if this is truly a cult, which I believe that it is that I think he'll make it through, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what he did immediately in the past couple days is deploy a bunch of different distractions in tandem. And your name's been brought up several times in the past couple days, which I'm sure. How do you feel when you're having a normal day, you're painting, you're hanging out, and you see that the sitting president of the U.S. is talking about you on Truth Social?
You know, it is, it's literally such a regular occurrence that it doesn't even faze me. I mean, at all. I think he's invoked my name since he's been president well over 100 times. Me, not my dad. That's like thousands of times. Yeah. But, you know, I dozens and dozens of times.
I really don't think that he's going to survive this. I don't think so. Because they leaned on...
By the way, so I should be asking you.
Yeah.
And the reason I should be asking you is because I don't know anybody that has spent more time actually in a non-ironic way talking to these people.
Right.
And trying to really figure out what makes them tick, where these conspiracies start. So, like, by the way, like every conspiracy, it has a giant thread of truth running to it. But like, why do you believe that they're not going to give it up?
Just because if you really think about the MAGA cult, the extremists, the people who feel like they want to live and die for this cause, it was that, you know, idea of a evil, demonic, pedophile cabal connected to Epstein and the Democrats that really galvanized them in a way that went beyond politics. The whole thing of like saving the children, the adrenochrome stuff, like all of that more fringe stuff, that powers the hearts of the boldest soldiers in the MAGA movement. Maybe there are people out there who just like Trump because he has strict border policy, or they like Trump because he's not into cancel culture and he says what he wants, and there's different reasons. But the true loyalists, the Kelly J. Patriots of the world, they're into the Epstein stuff. QAnon, that was January 6th.
Yes.
QAnon was January 6th.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of people out there. For example, if you go to a dive bar right now in central Nebraska, or somewhere in deep in Wisconsin, everybody there's a Trump supporter, right? Yeah. Is everybody there a Capitol rioter? No. Is everybody there somebody that wears a Trump t-shirt, a hoodie every day? No. Those people who wear the uniform and live by those 4 letters, Epstein is their number one thing. And so what I think they're going to do is they're going to say either Trump is compromised now by the deep state and we need a new figure to rally behind, or the only way I could see Trump getting out of this is if he said, I actually have the files, but I need the files so that I can continue to blackmail powerful people and make sure that we can get the America First agenda continuously in the doorway. So I could see Trump being like, yeah, I didn't release them because I got dirt on these Democrats and I'm keeping them at bay. So I'm going to release it when the mission is complete. That is the only possible route they could have forward.
Oh, God, I hope you don't give him that idea.
I'm sure he's thought about it.
But by the way, so like I think we talked about this last time we spoke, is remember what the laptop is, okay? The laptop to 90% of the people is this amorphous kind of like make of it what you will. Like dream up whatever crime you want, and that's what the laptop represents to them. To that 10% that you're talking about, it's pedophilia. The first thing that they did, that Bernie Kerik and Gao and Giuliani did on separate tracks, Gao with Bannon and Giuliani and Kerik did, is they accused me of pedophilia. And they kind of held up the laptop. I mean, it was like the ultimate McCarthy era. It's like, I got a list in my breast pocket. It was like, I got a laptop and it has, you know, and hinted at underage girls, in Rudy Giuliani's words.
Pictures of underage girls.
And then they just let that sit out there. And then Gao went out with that guy in New Zealand, and he actually put out like doctored images of like children in cages in Beijing or something like that, in which, you know, they're supposedly coming from my laptop. And so when you say was I ever tied into it, I wasn't tied into the Epstein one, but I was definitely the target, and one of the reasons why the original 60 or so national security officials, former national security officials, said it had all the hallmarks of a Russian operation was because of what they did. That is absolutely like the most obvious, typical Russian op is pure elimination rhetoric, accusing me of sex trafficking, of crimes against children.
Starting at the worst thing.
Starting at the worst thing. And then it's much easier to believe that because somebody that was part of a Ukrainian gas company sends an email saying, it was nice to meet your dad. Therefore, I was, taking bribes from a Ukrainian gas company in their minds. But it's so much easier to make that gap if you just, even in the back of your mind, think that's the connection. So every time he says laptop, remember, now he says laptop and he says disgusting, dirty, like made in Hunter Biden's bathroom. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Not about corruption anymore to him. He's trying to tie it to that original thing that Giuliani, Carrick, Bannon, and Gao tried to tie it to.
Which is the new Red Scare, but instead of identifying communists, identifying pedos. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's straight out of Putin's book. I mean, literally straight out of Putin's book, which, by the way, is not even Putin's book. That was used by the Nazis. Elimination rhetoric actually came from there. And I'm sure something has been used time immemorial, but it was perfected by the Nazis and then reintroduced in the early 2000s, most prominently by Putin, and now used regularly by them.
One thing they were able to exploit, too, is a widespread belief that to become successful, you have to first do something horrible, and that there is a crest of society that you can only access by doing something so horrific, like, drinking the blood out of a baby, that it makes it so you are just now beholden to the will of the elites, because in order to become one, you have to do something so horrible that you can be blackmailed into compliance for the rest of your life. Now, I know personally that that's not true. You can become successful without eating a kid. But it's really easy to convince people who don't know anyone who's successful or wealthy that it's sad, because you're preying on people with no class mobility and being like, you especially see it in the black community. Anytime a rapper gets a record deal, or there's sort of an assumption that like they did something gay. Not necessarily pedophilic, but just sort of gay. And so the Diddy thing was also kind of milked in that regard, too.
Is that for real?
What?
What you just said about the rapper, is that a real thing? That's a real, I didn't know that.
Oh, like once you start getting that industry money, you got to go to those all-white Michael Rubin parties, and you got to do sort of weird gay stuff.
Oh, that's what Cat Williams is talking about when he's talking about that.
It's all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. All lies will be exposed.
So it's across the board. Yeah. And I feel like this was in the MAGA movements. The whole Epstein is the center point of exploiting that belief. See, all those powerful people that you love, those actors who are on the silver screen who are untouchable, you know how they got there, right? Epstein Island. And you know who's never been to Epstein Island? Us. We're the grassroots. We're for the people. Yeah. And so it's
and me. Just so you know, and me. Yeah. And Joe Biden. Yeah. You've never been to Epstein Island. No, I know they don't say that, but yeah.
Well, unpopular opinion, if there was no underage kids at Epstein Island,
nice place to go?
Yeah.
I can't believe you suckered me into saying that. Like, that's something that could definitely be taken out of context, motherfucker. Right, what the fuck? Now I feel like I just got fucking trapped. That's going to be the whole interview.
Well, no, I've always
Hunter
said that.
Biden says, fucker. Fuck you.
Well, I had a buddy, you've seen The Bear before, right? The show The Bear?
Yeah, of course.
So you know Matty Matheson, the kind of big guy who's the chef?
Oh, yeah.
His best friend was the private chef at Epstein Island.
No.
Yeah.
What does he say?
It's fucking awesome, aside from that shit. But he didn't know.
Yeah.
And so he's like,
but how did he not know?
Because he just was kept in, I'm sure Epstein would never do anything to let the chefs know. Like, that's the thing about the island, from what I heard, is that like those activities, there was other extravagant things happening on the island. For example, they would fly out top chefs. They would fly out world-class entertainment.
Yeah.
They would create this elite entertainment experience for people that also included that thing.
So, by the way, and therefore that explains, for instance, President Clinton, the Dalai Lama, and a whole host of other people.
Yeah.
And by the way, which could also explain Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
To be fair, it could explain that. I want to believe, and I think I know some I not know personally, but like admirers of certain people, and I think that he pulled so many people into his orbit through his just an enormous amount of wealth that he threw around. Like I was watching that documentary, and you realize, like, knowing of some of these billionaires, like his display of wealth, like he had the most expensive apartment in Manhattan.
Yeah.
This is $75 million at that time. It's $75 million in the 90s, I think. You know what I mean? Like he had like an entire island. He didn't just have a, like, you know, a Gulfstream whatever. He had a 727 and a Gulfstream and a place in New Mexico and a place in, and so like he wooed and created like this salon in New York where people would come over, and whether it was, you know, XYZ actor and, you know, one of the Kennedys and former president, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can see how it would be completely unfair to, like, you know, say everyone that was associated with him. However, on the island, the one guy on that documentary that didn't seem to have anything to gain from it was the guy that did his the work on all the telecom. Have you watched that documentary?
Yeah, on Netflix.
So remember the guy that is the he did all of the tech work on the island, and he said that the pool guy said to him, "Why do you do this?" And he said, "I do it for the money." And the guy said, "Do you have daughters?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Would you allow your daughter to come to this island?" And so he saw it, and he said he quit that day.
Well, the pool guy could have just been like a devout Muslim or something.
Yeah. Well, the tech guy thought about it, and he said, like, you know, he's the one that claims that he saw Prince Andrew in the pool naked with the girl, Virginia Joffrey or whatever.
Yeah,
saw them together.
The one that was the primary source.
Who was underage at that time. So I don't know how much people's recollection of, like, getting paid to go to the island to be a chef.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
like,
kind of
I just
the
didn't
point
see
I'm trying to make is that I feel like when people have this Epstein conversation, they're forgetting the fact that this guy was putting millions and millions of dollars into world-class entertainment and making sure that people had a, you know.
I totally agree. And by the way, like that's another thing, is the fine line between, like, look, like all of these people, you know, here, New York, you know, and you've met these people, you know, like, you have an opening for your, you know, your album. There are people that you go out there and you hire models.
Yeah.
All right, guys, as Hunter knows, addiction can take you to some dark places. But it's not always drugs or alcohol that people get addicted to. In fact, millions of Americans are...
You know, only Melissa just come up with a little chicken matzo ball soup from, like, out of nowhere.
That's amazing.
Like, where does that come from? She's like, here's some chicken matzo ball soup. Just whipped it up from the soda cans in the fridge. Okay, how cool would it be if you had all the money to buy this whole, like, these views are so incredible. Is that a bat? Look at the teeth on that, though. That's not a bat.
What the fuck?
No, that's a,
You may have just discovered a new animal.
No, that was a, I think that was a cat.
Jesus. Wow, that's a cat who passed away? Rest in peace. Oh, it looks like a dog.
Yeah, it does look like a dog.
That's a dog who was burnt to a crisp during the wildfires.
It's so sad, actually.
Life is sad.
Today is a victorious day as our relative is here in the flesh.
President Joe Biden commuted the life sentence of Leonard Peltier.
I was really, really, really proud because it was a really courageous thing that I think that my dad did.
The 79-year-old has served nearly 50 years in prison after being convicted for the 1975 killing of 2 FBI agents.
A young man who's spending his life in prison for something he almost certainly did not do.
Leonard Peltier and others killed Williams and Collier in cold blood on the reservation because they happened to be there at the wrong place at the wrong time.
He's considered by a lot of people to be America's longest serving political prisoner.
People today don't understand the FBI of 73. They went after Martin Luther King. It is in that context that Peltier was gone after.
The Peltier group, who could have just driven away, came to the agents' cars, Williams and Collier, and killed them both at point blank. I think I speak for all FBI agents. It's a kick in the balls. That's, yeah.
I know in my heart I never killed nobody.
Why can't you stay organised? I've experienced this myself, and it's called chronic impulse control. In November of 2018, in the wake of Stan Lee's death, Bill Maher, comedian and raunchy talk show personality, wrote a short post for his Tumblr account. Yes, Bill Maher has a Tumblr. The title of the piece is Adulting, and here, let me just read the first few sentences. The guy who created Spider-Man and the Hulk has died, and America is in mourning. Deep, deep mourning for a man who inspired millions to, I don't know, watch a movie, I guess? Someone on Reddit posted, I'm so incredibly grateful I lived in a world that included Stan Lee. Personally, I'm grateful I lived in a world that included oxygen and trees, but to each his own. I think you get the idea. Maher spends 3 paragraphs scolding adults for caring about Marvel and Stan Lee. The assumption everyone made back then, both the adults and the kids, was that comics were for kids, and when you grew up, you moved on to big boy books without the pictures. As you might imagine, the internet got quite mad about this one. There were many upset people, many tweets, many articles about this subject, so many articles. Eventually, the outcry led Bill Maher to raise the subject again, this time on TV. In a 2019 editorial segment called Grow Up, Maher responds to his haters, and it's really something.
Bragging that you're all about the Marvel Universe is like boasting that your mother still pins your mittens to your sleeves.
So this segment is obviously very stupid. For one thing, I genuinely don't understand why Maher would care about this at all. I'm not huge into Stan Lee's comics, so I can't speak authoritatively on the subject, but even accepting that they were traditionally written for children, I don't think it's stupid to enjoy and sentimentalize them. I love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and The Wizard of Oz and old Disney films, movies that are very much aimed at being fun for a child audience, and I don't think that makes me immature or stunted or whatever. Media for kids is good sometimes, obviously.
Spookly, spookly, watch your webs and you'll see Halloween is fun for pumpkin.
But also, the blog post and editorial segment are simply very mean, needlessly mean. Stan Lee, a legend in his industry, had just died, and even if you believe his work should be read exclusively by children, that doesn't mean you have to spit on his legacy. Deep, deep mourning for a man who inspired millions to, I don't know, watch a movie? This was a person and an artist, and he's dead. It's genuinely very rude. But here's the thing, I have to make a bit of a confession here. This shit just inexplicably makes me laugh. Bill Maher is acting like such a condescending asshole, and about an issue so minor, so stupid, so likely to make everybody mad, that it just kind of puts a smile on my face.
By the way, if someone says you're being childish and you react by throwing a tantrum, you're not Iron Man. You're Irony Man.
I don't know if I'm laughing with Bill or at him. I suspect it's a combination of the two. But I crack up when Maher says,
I'm not glad Stan Lee is dead. I'm sad you're alive.
I like this part where Maher talks about Marvel and racism.
Other people tweeted things like, I learned about social justice and racial tolerance by reading comic books. Okay, but now you have pubic hair. Read James Baldwin, read Toni Morrison, read Michael Eric Dyson.
It's dumb, but it's kind of iconic, right? You learned about racism from the Hulk. Okay, well, I learned about it from Malcolm X, so fuck off. Also, when I first saw it, I laughed weirdly hard at this Yogi Bear joke.
Until I saw that 40,000 Twitter followers unfollowed me like that. To which I say, good riddance, follow Yogi Bear.
It's such a cheesy line, and Maher delivers it with so much confidence and pride that I can't help but enjoy. Go follow Yogi Bear. Bill Maher is a troll, is my point, and maybe this is my own inner 12-year-old coming out, but there's something kind of fun to me about a troll, about being needlessly incendiary and stupid and mean. Still, being an annoying troll isn't funny on its own, is it? I don't just laugh whenever somebody's a douchebag. No, what I think makes this segment kind of work is that Bill Maher is being fundamentally honest with us. Yes, Stan Lee died. Yes, his work was overwhelmingly popular among children. Yes, Bill Maher made a very rude blog post about it. Yes, lots of people got mad at him. Every step of the way, Maher's jokes, his arguments, are founded on information that he provides to his audience. Information that we can think on, come to conclusions about. The monologue has integrity. It's not bullshitting us, and that's what allows it to feel a bit satisfying, stupid in a funny way. So, why am I talking about this Bill Maher monologue from 7 years ago? Well, it's to give you a taste of what Bill Maher means or meant to me. I remember as a kid on a road trip with my father listening to an audiobook where he shared his new rules, pithy one-liners about how culture should be.
New rule, conservatives have to stop abandoning their heroes just because they come out of the closet to reveal that they're sane. New rule, a new cashier line opening up at the drugstore does not mean that human civilization has broken down and the rules of society no longer apply. New rule, the stage show Stomp must change its name to Shut the Hell Up, I Can't Hear Myself Think.
I remember his film, Religulous, where he just walked around being rude to religious people.
How can smart people, how can they believe in the talking snake and people live to 900 years old and the virgin birth and...
It's all the same shtick, right? Maher is a smug liberal archetype. He makes out his every opinion to be divinely ordained, and he genuinely acts like he's the smartest man on planet Earth. That shtick is annoying. I've never been a fan of Maher, but it's also straightforward in its own way. I can imagine why somebody would like it. Over the last few months, I've fallen down a bit of a Bill Maher rabbit hole, watched editorial after editorial from him. And I know it might sound strange, but the more of Maher's work I watch, the more I look back at this video, where he, for no apparent reason, shits on the fans and legacy of a recently dead artist with a kind of nostalgia. So I want to start our look at Bill Maher with a kind of odd video, an editorial that he released in 2023 defending Mr. Beast and his philanthropic work from the horde of haters.
One of the more mind-blowing stories of this year was about the internet celebrity Mr. Beast, and how he was always getting raked over the coals for a series of charitable endeavors.
So look, I know that Mr. Beast is a controversial figure on the internet, particularly with regard to his philanthropy, but this video isn't actually about Mr. Beast, right? Like, I don't care about this 101 Facts activity book about Mr. Beast. I don't care about Mr. Beast's lab swarms 5 micro beasts inside. You know, that's not what this is about. I don't care about Mr. Beast Lab, make your own Mr. Beast. That doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about this awesome, cool Mr. Beast hat that I bought and that makes me look fucking sexy. It doesn't matter to me. Rather, I want to look at this editorial because it's kind of a perfect case study for understanding who Bill Maher is as a writer and political thinker. I'm less interested in the material. I'm more interested in looking really meticulously at the way it's constructed, how Maher takes us through his argument. Maher starts by talking about a Mr. Beast video where Jimmy Beast pays for cataract surgery for 1,000 people.
Cool, huh? Wrong. He filmed their overjoyed reactions, which to many made him a performative altruist. A Washington Post reporter tweeted, "What truly needs curing is society's view of disabled people." And BuzzFeed agreed, Mr. Beast seems to regard disability as something that needs to be solved.
So when we look at these quotes, everything is mostly as Maher describes it. While Taylor Lorenz, at the time employed by the Washington Post, did not directly say that what needs curing is society's view of the disabled, she did lovingly quote tweet Stephen Aquino, who said that line and wrote an article partly on the subject. As far as the BuzzFeed article goes, I don't know. While the author, Kelsey Weekman, does say the quote Maher attributes to her, the article itself doesn't seem like it's arguing that case so much as giving a summary of the discourse. Either way, I'll say that Maher is starting off pretty straightforward here. There's a group of people who believes there's something ableist about Mr. Beast's cataract surgery video, and at least 2 of those people are being quoted. And you know, Maher doesn't like that. He's angry about it.
Mr. Beast, whoever the fuck that is, just cured them and you didn't do shit.
Things get a bit more strained after this point, though. Let me play you Maher's next example of a Mr. Beast hater.
Mr. Beast, in another dick move, funded the construction of 100 wells across 5 countries in Africa to provide clean drinking water to 500,000 people. Good thing, right? No. The founder of a charity called Face Africa called it kind of frustrating that overnight this person comes along who happens to be a white male figure with a huge platform, and all of a sudden he gets all of the attention. Yes, but you know what else is frustrating? dying of thirst.
So I think it's fair to say that Maher is simply lying here. He's clearly suggesting that Saran Kaba-Jones is like calling out Mr. Beast, and that's not true. This quote is from a CNN article, and that article is mostly centered on various Kenyan voices expressing disappointment, saying that it's a shame that random YouTubers are stepping in to solve Kenya's problems as opposed to, the country's government. Activist Boniface Mwangi said, "We are a shameful, horrible country, a begging nation governed by millionaires." And Ferdinand Omondi said, "It's embarrassing that a YouTuber jetted into Kenya on a charity tour to perform tasks our taxes should have completed ages ago." And Jones is basically just agreeing with them, saying that she and others try to get attention on water access in Kenya, but that nobody cares, nobody's funding a solution. A white guy YouTuber is more influential than activists and organizations and governments. As Jones said to CNN, "I've been doing this for 15 years, but we've been struggling to continue the work because funding, awareness, and advocacy all take work." She goes on in this video to praise Mr. Beast for what he did, though obviously Bill Maher does not see fit to include that. I wonder why. And we see Maher being dishonest just a few seconds later, albeit in a more subtle way.
Another thing this asshole did in Africa was pay for the rebuilding of an African orphanage, which the director of the Hope and Homes for Children charity called it a classic case of white saviorism.
So Maher misquotes the activist he's discussing. Lorenza Foghill did not say that Mr. Beast constructing the orphanage was a classic case of white saviorism. She said, "Is it a classic case of white saviorism? Arguably yes, but ... Now, you might think that difference is unimportant. The Daily Mail, the conservative slot paper that first ran this story, certainly agrees. Their headline reads, "Mr. Beast slammed as white savior." But in cases like this, I think you should always ask the question, if it doesn't matter, why did they lie? Why did they change it? And in this case, I think the difference matters quite a bit. For one thing, that Foghill says, "Is that a classic case of white saviorism?" suggests to me that she was probably asked some leading question. Do you think that was a classic case of white saviorism, Lorenza? Well, arguably so. You can imagine a Daily Mail journalist doing that. But more importantly, changing Foghill's question into a statement allows Maher to paint her criticism as very simple and accusatory. Her general issue, the audience would naturally guess, is that Mr. Beast's actions were performative or racist or something. But no, that's not it at all. Foghill runs a charity called Hope and Homes for Children, and Bill Maher doesn't say this, but the entire purpose of that organization is to get kids out of orphanages. This is her full quote from before. Is it a classic case of white saviorism? Arguably yes, but one thing is for sure, Mr. Beast is denying the so-called orphans from Bapu Malele their right to grow up in a family. See, Hope and Homes claims that 80% of the children in orphanages in the global south do actually have parents, and that the children taken from these families are worse off for it, more likely to end up homeless or in trouble with the law. And Foghill's issue is not really with white saviorism or with Mr. Beast, the person. She actually says some pretty nice stuff about him. Her issue is that he built an orphanage and advertised the building of orphanages. She thinks directly giving family support is a far better option, and she spent her life devoted to that belief. Now let me ask you, realistically, do you think Maher's point would have been as persuasive if he'd included this context? Well, maybe, but I don't think so. In the end, Maher shows us one thing perfectly curated for his argument, that this woman hates Jimmy Beast because he's a white, honky show-off, and that's all we need to know.
Ask any orphan to name the worst part of their life. Show-offs!
At the end of this bit, Maher says this.
How did we get to this weird place? Telling people who are actually out in the world making a positive difference, you're the problem. Yeah, quick question. Who the fuck are you?
And it really cements the perspective he wants us to have on these women. Who the fuck are you, he asks. Bill, these people you're quoting aren't just angry guys on Twitter. They had organizations devoted to the subject they're opining about. And yet Bill needs to minimize them. He quotes them because people might take their opinion seriously and then ignores everything about them. Okay, now things take a turn. See, Bill Maher isn't just interested in tweets and articles. No, the culture he wants to criticize is far bigger than that. It goes all the way to the National Institutes of Health.
And this isn't only the media. And the people on Twitter who exist to bitch, always finding something. This is also the National Institutes of Health, which last year proposed to amend their mission statement to exclude the word disability, saying it, quote, could be interpreted as perpetuating ableist beliefs that disabled people are flawed and need to be fixed. Let me take this moment to go on record. Folks, if I am ever struck blind or deaf or paralyzed, don't praise me. Fix me.
I would say this is the part of the video where things start to feel like gibberish. Like Mars says, this isn't just confined to Twitter or media, which exists only to whine, but what exactly isn't confined to those things? What issue? So far, the problem has been all about people being overly critical and judgmental, right? Poo-pooing Mr. Beast. Bill Maher is a huge Beast head, you see, and so he hates to see people, coming after his boy. Bill Maher loves Beast games. Bill Maher would love to try ice creams at different levels of price. He doesn't like to see his hero being taken apart like this. But that problem doesn't seem